just so we're clear, everything we're going to be talking about from now on is really two things. To find ways for you to remember who you really are, because we've forgotten this. This is all remembering. And everything will also be focused on the creation process. We mentioned this once already, but I'm going to say it again. It's on exactly how things came into being, so you understand how you got this body and where this planet came from and all these other things. So you get it, you understand it, and you know how to do it as well. You can't go on into ascension if you don't know those two things. It's not possible. You will remain human, you will die, you'll go through the death process and into another level. The spirit never dies. You can't be destroyed. It's not possible. You have been around from the beginning, from the beginning of everything, and you will be around till the end and beyond. You will never. You are greater than this universe. You are the one who created it in the first place, and so everything is aimed at is getting your memory back and trying to remember who you are and what your relationship with is everything, and exactly how this process works. As you enter into higher consciousness, you have to understand that there's like a time lag here. It's not very long. It depends a lot on how you build it. But when you create something here, there's usually a little bit of a time lag, and then it happens. And we don't realize that we're doing everything. From the fourth dimension on, it's instantaneous. Absolutely instantaneous. When you create something, poof, it's there. There's no or waiting for it or anything like that. You don't have to put your timer on or something like that. It'll happen instantly. But most people doing it don't know that that's what's happening. And so that's the problem, part of the problem. And so you have to remember not only who you are, but how you do these things. And so, but as we unfold these two things, we're going to do all kinds of things from here on out. Some of them won't look like they have anything to do with what we're doing here, and other ones will be pretty obvious. But it's a procedure that has taken a long time to develop, and it works pretty well. By the time you get out of here, I think most of you will have a much expanded view of who you are and what's going on in this world and everything else. I don't think I need to talk about that. I'm going to go kind of straight forward on this. It was Hermes who said the words, "as above, so below." That was 2,000 years ago. It took us just about 2,000 years to kind of figure it out. We're just now beginning to understand that if you look at the Earth circling around the sun, and you go down and look at an atom, you see the electrons circulating around, moving around that, only at 9/10 the speed of light, that you can just intuitively see this relationship as you go smaller and smaller or bigger and bigger, that everything is interconnected. But that one, we're pretty much getting that, maybe not perfectly, but we've got a pretty good understanding of that. But the one that we don't get at all is the other part of what Hermes said, which was as within, so without. And this is the creation process. What goes on in here is what creates what's out there. And so we have to learn what's going on inside here. They are directly related. Nothing happens in the universe that you don't have a responsibility in. And I know it seems big to do something like that, but it's still true. We believe, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, we believe that the stars and the planets and all that stuff has been there for at least 16, 17 billion years, and that it's just the way it is. But from a Melchizedek point of view, we have a different view. It hasn't been there very long, actually, and it isn't even there. There is nothing out there at all. There are no stars, there are no planets, and you don't have a body. A better modern day way of thinking of it is just a hologram. It's just an image that was created, and it doesn't actually exist. But we get emotionally connected into it. You remember that movie, Contact, by Jodie Foster? And so, for those of you who saw it, who was in a pentagonal dodecahedron and dropped through that thing for a few seconds. And in those seconds, she went deep into space and time and dimension and came out on some planet that had a bunch of stars and moons and things that were around it. And at first, she's in a solid metal thing, and then she starts seeing that image appearing just out of her fingertips, and pretty soon there's a beach there. And there's one point which was very important. She reached forward and put her finger out, and the beach rippled, which showed you that it was just an image. It wasn't really a beach. But a moment later, she started looking into it and seeing somebody walking toward her, and she got so much into it that the metal container she was in disappeared. And she was on this beach with all that stuff. Where did it go? And this is pretty much how it is. We are not where we think we are. We are not doing what we think we are. And nothing that we know is what we think it is. We are living in just 100% complete illusion. And so we have to make this jump over into a world that is really uniquely different than anything we've been told in school or from our parents or anyone. It is not what we think. Obviously, I don't expect you to believe this, but if you go deep enough into what we're doing into meditation, you come to a point where you understand and you begin to see that it's true. There are many other universes besides this one, and I'm not talking about dimensional worlds or parallel worlds or any of these kind of ideas. There are literally other creations of other universes that have nothing to do with this one. In fact, there is no place inside of all these stars and planets and anything that you can reach any of these other universes except one, and it's always inside the heart of a human being or a person. In the heart, there is a tiny, tiny little place, and that place is where all other universes were created. And there's a near infinite number inside of everybody's heart. The other places that don't look like this, don't feel like this, and nothing, but they're worlds that other people have created, which is really us. And from there, in that tiny space, you can actually step out and come back into another universe. But you can't get there there's no portal or anything here in here that will get you from here to any of these other creations, because they don't exist. They only have their roots or their stem within your heart. I know this is different than what many people feel about the reality, especially scientists, etc. But it's nothing new. You can go back into the Vedas 6,000 years ago and they talk about this very same thing. In Hinduism, Maya the world is called Maya. It's illusion, which actually means simply not true. It just isn't true. And we must also begin to understand what we mean by it's not true, because in order to step over to be able to get into the creation process on this level, you can't do it with this mindset that this stuff is really there. You have to understand the nature of what you're looking at. The most distant stars are right at your fingertips. The whole universe is right here, right out that far away. It's out at the Leonardo sphere. That's the image. That's the imaging sphere of your Merkaba. And before we get out of here, we're going to trace the entire mapping of consciousness inside the body, exactly how it's all linked together and which glands and how it works and all these kinds of things, so you can see clearly how this works, and then you can do it. And you will eventually have to come to this place where you take the courage to leap over and begin to actually begin to create things. Again, not so that you actually are creating whatever that thing is, but so that you can see the process of how it works. And we'll get into this in great detail, really great detail, before we get out of here. But one of the things that's connected to the as within, so without, is the nature that love has to do, how the role that it plays in the creation process. It is primary. You have no power if you have no love. Love, the creation process requires love, and it requires a very certain kind of love. And so, and whenever you go from love and you go into fear, you lose your ability to do this. If you're literally in fear, you can't enter into the creation process. You cannot do it. You can't be like totally shaking in your boots and trying to do this. It will not work. You have to be in this expanded, open place, vulnerable, not afraid, absolutely fearless of anything, fearless of death, fearless of pain or anything else, where you know your connection to God. And you can sit in this place and then do this process from your heart without any fear at all. The moment fear enters in, it's over. And I want to show you this directly right now. I want to go through an experiment, and you can see for yourself what I'm talking about. And so, in order to do this, we begin by you finding a partner. Because we're going to do this in direct experience. So somebody just find a partner. I don't care if it's male or female, or none of that stuff matters to me. Just as long as you find someone, hopefully you like. It's easier to do this if you at least like them. If you don't like them, maybe you should find another partner if you can. And as soon as you get the partner, then we're going to start. Okay. This is always like magic to me. People just make little links and things like this, and then everybody has a partner, right? Okay, at this point, who does not have a partner? If the people that do not have a partner would go to the back of the room, back there, so you can all be together, and we can call that the singles bar. And if you guys can just meet and decide who you want to be with. And okay, next thing is you have to be together physically with your partner. So, and I don't care, you can move these chairs any way you want. You can sit on the ground. You can do anything you want. But just get where you're facing your partner. Okay. It's enough socializing. So everybody's facing your partner. Now move close enough so your knees touch. And if you're wearing glasses, it's better without them, but if you can't see the end of your nose, then maybe you need them, I don't know. The energies work better if you don't have them on. Because you don't have to see, you're not going to be looking at the person's surface of their body, you're going to be looking in a different way. Okay, now just face your partner and close your eyes. And remember, your knees have to touch. If you want to physically be touching, but just a little tiny bit. Okay, just close your eyes and begin to breathe and feel the prana coming from above and below and meeting in your heart chakra. You can feel that prana tube. And feel it and see it or sense it turn into a sphere, or see the sphere or sense the sphere. It's about the size of it's 2 hand lengths, like a big basketball. Now let me just explain what we're going to do. You're going to have an interaction with your partner. First we're going to do something, which I'll describe in a moment. Then you're going to have an interaction with your partner. Then we're going to talk about that for a little while. And then we're going to have another interaction, a second one. and then we're going to discuss that one. And then afterwards we're going to come back and repeat what we just are about to do. And what I'm talking about by that, I mean, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, before you begin connected with your partner, is I'm going to give you 3 minutes to go in and connect with the spirit of the earth, with Mother Earth. And the best that you can, whatever it means to you, is connect with her and feel connected and begin to communicate with her. At the end of those 3 minutes, I will have you come back, and then we'll do these 2 exercises. After those 2 exercises, we're going to repeat this. The reason is because you'll find that these 2 exercises open your heart. You don't have a lot of choice. It tends, if you really do this exercise, it will open your heart. And when it does, when you go back and do the exercise where you go to connect with Mother Earth a second time, you'll find that it's usually incredibly stronger and more remarkable, because you've opened your heart relative to where you normally are. And so that's what we're going to show you, the power of love. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes now, and in whatever way that you know, go in and connect with Mother Earth. And then when I call you back out, kind of gauge how well you did, sort of, the best you can for yourself. Now here we go. Just go into the earth and visit her. Now. Okay, now come back, but keep your eyes closed. And just feel how well that communication was. And now, put your attention on your partner with your eyes closed. And to the best you can, begin to sense your partner, to feel their body, and their light body around them, their aura also, their thoughts, their feelings. See everything, sense everything you can with your eyes closed first. Now in just a moment I'm going to ask you to open your eyes in a minute, and when you do, I'd like you to look into your partner's eyes and just sort of stare into their eyes and begin to look for that sacred and holy person that exists in all of us. You're not going to look at their ego or anything you know about them. You're going to look past all of that and look to see if you can find that sacred and holy person inside of them. That's what you're looking for. About now, an interesting thing begins to happen. Your breath begins to link with your partner, and you begin to breathe in unison. And also about now, if you notice, even though without looking, and don't look away from their eyes, but be aware that there is a glowing light around their head. You can see it. Almost everyone here will see this. Now I'd like you to send a beam of light from your heart to their heart, a couple inches around, and make it this beautiful pink color. And feel the love for them through that beam. What happened to the light around their head when you did that? Now I'm going to ask you to do an exercise within an exercise. If you can't do it, do the best you can. If you can't do it, then just revert back to what you're doing now. But slowly cross your eyes a little bit until you can see 4 of your partner's eyes. 2 sets. Once you see the 4 eyes, slowly, very slowly, uncross your eyes until two of those eyes come back and form a third eye, one eye in the middle. When you see that third eye, look into it. For those of you that are doing it, you're probably feeling this very strong, powerful energy in your own third eye. And you are linking with this person in a very deep way, though you may not know it at the moment. Now close your eyes and give your partner a big hug. This is the easy part. Now, talk to your partner about what you just experienced. There's one more thing I just want to tell you while you're talking. Probably 75% of you or 80% of you saw your partner's face turn into other people. Talk to them about that. Okay, if we could focus back up here now. So don't go anywhere because you're not done with your partner yet. You're going to do another one in a minute. Second exercise. Just to finish this one though, you began by first seeing your partner with your eyes closed. And how many people could see their energy field and everything with your eyes closed? Just kind of get where we're at here. Okay, good. You can see a lot of things much better with your eyes closed. You really, you can. Okay, and then you open your eyes and you start looking for that sacred space or person within them. And then at one point I had you see the aura, or it's really just the thought process, because you're looking around the head, of what that person's doing. How many people could see that light around the head? It's like most of you. It's a little hole over here. And then I had you connect your heart to their heart with a beam of pink light. What happened to the light? She's going, it expands, it gets bigger. When you feel love coming from someone, you respond with love. And when you do, your aura expands. It gets bigger. It can get really huge just by feeling that love. Right after that, I didn't say anything, but I'm sure a lot of you saw this. You're sitting there looking at a person, and all of a sudden their face goes and morphs into a completely different person. How many people saw that? Yeah, a lot of you. And then it may morph into another completely different person, and then it could go into 5 or 6 or 7 of them, and it could go from male to female and back and forth and different ones. Also, other kinds of life forms. ETs will sometimes somebody, hey, what are you doing out here? And even other animals. How many people saw animals? You saw them turn into an animal? These are what the natives call power animals. You have done a very good deed to that animal at some time in your life, and they love you, and so they protect you. And they stay with you. And it's not a bad thing. It's a very good thing. And then at the very end, I had you cross your eyes so you see 4 eyes, and then move the 2 center ones in, and you look into it. How many could actually do that? Wow, very good. Usually I only get about half. That was like 75%. That is a Tibetan practice, and it is in their white tantra practice. It's actual sexual energy you're feeling, but it's not sexual energy that we normally think of. And it's I can't keep you there very long. When I first learned that, I can remember every second of this. When I first, my wife and I did this, and what happens is when your spirits link in that way, it's a very sexual thing, but you can't get apart after a certain length of time. If I left you there for 20, 25 minutes, the workshop will be over. That'd be it. We would just sit there for the rest of the day. It takes about 4, 5, 6 hours before the two people could break apart. They don't want to. You can't even push them apart. You can push as hard as you want. Nothing will happen. They're just like rocks. They will not move. And because they're exchanging energy on a very, very deep level. I really think you'll know more. You could have been with your partner for 20, 30 years, and you do that one time, and you'll know them better than you've ever known them before. Because you're exchanging from deep within them all this just knowledge and wisdom and energy and all kinds of stuff. But it's beautiful. But I had to stop it. If you do this at home, when you get home, you might as well just lock the doors, take all the telephones off, everything else, because when you get to a certain place, you can't quit. And it'll be a long time before you can quit. I mean, if the room burned down, you'd just sit there. You wouldn't go anywhere. Okay. So now we're going to do another exercise, and this one's going to take you deeper. And we're going to go into a little bit of psychic work that some of you might not be used to. Just trust yourself. You're more psychic than you know. And so this time, though, instead of facing your partner, get back to back. Before we begin, I'm going to talk about the breathing tube, your Merkaba breathing tube, and we're going to create another one. It won't be logical to you, but just play the game. It's just a game. And by the way, everything we're doing between now and the end, it works a lot better if you're not serious about it. Just don't care about the results and just be like a little child and have fun. Because the higher your degree in college, the harder it is to do this. Because you got to get out of your brain and into your heart. Okay, close your eyes. And again, feel your Merkaba rotating around you. And feel the prana coming from above and below and meeting in your heart. Now also this time, be aware of the angel that you met down there. I know some of you probably already know that angel real well, but for some of you it's a new experience. Let the angel guide you or connect you through all of this next step. Now just begin to breathe through your prana tube. And I'm just going to give you a minute to breathe with your partner. Now, about now, your breathing begins to sync and go into unison with your partner. Feel yourself breathing in unison with your partner. Now see, sense, or feel a third breathing tube between your backs. It's not yours or your partner's. It's an imaginary one. Put in between the middle. Just be aware of it. Now your spirit is not your body. And your spirit is very free in ways that many of us are not aware of. But for once, just allow this to be and feel your spirit, or whatever you think your spirit is, begin to move out of your breathing tube and back toward the imaginary breathing tube between your backs, and align yourself with that breathing tube and begin to breathe through it. So your spirit is slightly out of your body, partly in, partly out. And you can begin to breathe through this tube. Now realize both you and your partner are breathing through the same tube at the same time. What does that feel like? You may not know it at this moment, but you are getting very, very close. Now I'd like you to send a beam of light from your heart to theirs and realize it's diagonally across your body, your bodies. Only this time, instead of pink, make it a shimmering gold and link your hearts and feel the love moving between your bodies and your hearts. And don't forget to breathe. Now, I'd like you to rotate on the axis of that breathing tube and turn 180 degrees. I don't care which way you turn, left or right, but rotate around and face in the direction of your partner's body. And now, either sense or see or feel and look down into their body and continue to breathe. Now with your intention, you ask their very innocent part of them to come forth, the childlike part of them. It's always there. And ask that to come up out of their body and connect with that innocent part of them. The moment you do, you can feel everything. You can feel everything that's happened to them, all the pain that they've gone through, all the happiness and joy. Everything is open. And as you're feeling and seeing and sensing all of this about them, a feeling very often comes up. And it's a feeling of compassion, because it becomes clear as you're doing this that you're just like them. We all just want love and comfort, be taken care of. It's really simple things that we really want. And all the problems that happen in our lives are just things that happen, and they happen to everyone. Different degrees and different ways. Now very gently give love to that innocent part of them and let go and rotate back around and face in the direction of your own body. Now we're going to do it again with you. Look down into your own body the same way you did with your partner and ask your innocent part, your childlike part, to come forth. When you feel it, when you connect with it, go back in time, as far back as you can go, when you were a child or a baby, and go back to a happy moment that you had when you were little, and now re-experience it. Now slowly come back to your body, this room, and be aware of your breath again. Feel the tube and realize that you're breathing with another person. Now you haven't probably noticed it, but you have become incredibly connected to this other person by doing this. And you're going to know this in just a moment, because now I'm going to ask you to come forth, to stop breathing from that tube and go back into your own body and begin to breathe through your own breathing tube. You have to let go and be aware of how you feel when this happened. What does it feel like to be back in your body now, breathing alone? When it feels right, turn and give your partner a hug and talk about your experience with them. So you had, you moved back out of your body and you began to breathe with another person. At first, it just seems like it's kind of imaginary sort of stuff, usually for most people. but it's real. You really are, and it begins to change things inside of you. So then I asked you to rotate around and face into the other person's body and look down and bring their child lock. You can connect with various parts of their consciousness, but that's a real easy one and kind of, I don't know exactly how to say it, but it's just, it's not something that is fearful or anything. It's easy to accept that. And so, how many people could do that? Okay, it was almost everybody. When you did, how many of you were then able to actually feel what everything that was going on inside of their body and their experience, their life and everything? Less? If you want to repeat this at home where you're kind of safer and quiet and everything, you can get into a place where you could just know everything. I mean, it's just, you're really just wide open at that moment. You can know anything and everything about that person. You could probably really accelerate therapy at that moment. And then I had you turn around and do it to yourself. How many could do it with their self? More could do it with themselves. It's usually hard to do it with yourself and easier to do it with someone else than to look at your own inner child. And then you went back in time and experienced something that took place in your life a long time ago, hopefully a positive thing. Could everybody do that? Could you do that? Yeah. Then there was an interesting thing that happens where I had you rotate, well, you had already rotated back, but then you had to separate back into your own body. What did that feel like? Well, wait a minute, one at a time. Everybody's going, boo. So you didn't like it? No. Did anybody like it? Who liked going back into their own body? No, it's not negative. It just, yeah, most people usually feel like they feel little or lonely, not connected, a lot of things like that. And there was a time when we ran around in packs, basically, groups, and we all knew how to do that. And we were all one living being. They still do that, a lot of tribes. When you move around with some of these tribes, I was just with a Kogi in the Arhuacos in Colombia, and they get so close that they become totally telepathic, and distance doesn't matter. And I've watched them call in people from all over the world. They don't do anything. They just close their eyes and bam, they're all there. And but there was a time when all of us in our past used to do this, and I think we miss it. Because now we're just in our little houses, our little boxes, and we're separated from everything pretty much. But it was really different a long time ago. The dolphins and the whales are still like that. We can actually scientifically prove it because we can see the Merkaba fields around them, and we can actually watch what's going on. It's really interesting. They usually choose the oldest male, but not necessarily. Sometimes they choose the oldest female, and sometimes it's not always the oldest one, but just older. And they choose one, and they do exactly what we just did. They all breathe through the same breathing. They breathe through their breathing tube. And it makes them all cells in the larger body. They all breathe through one tube, and they all become connected. And they have... This is the reason why you'll see a whale beach themselves, and here's whales 20 miles back, and they'll come in and they'll beach themselves, and they just keep coming. Because they're following this one being, and they're so connected. Okay, so in this experience, what it generally does is open your heart. So I'd like you to go back and connect with Mother Earth, because you might meet her for the first time. She is a young lady, and she is really smart. Okay. Go for it. Okay, you can come back. So, was this a deeper experience than the first time? I mean, only you can say that for yourself, but we're trying to show you that this is not a game. The love is essential, and it is the power of the universe. It's what drives everything, and it's what creates everything. And so this is for sure. If it was something else, we would go there. But that is what it is. So everything we're going toward is based in love. It's the key to higher consciousness. Without the love, you can never get there. You have to begin loving yourself, and then really everyone, even those you don't like, you still got to love them. We're going to change gears again and do something completely different again. And this is experiential also. This has to do with my wife's work. And I want to talk about her for a moment. And I'm just introducing this here. And hopefully next year, if you're interested, she will be giving some classes, I think. But when I first met her, it was the last Flower of Life workshop ever in 94 or 33, whatever it was. And she had come to the workshop, but not on her, did it on her own. She was sent there by an organization. And this organization was one of the oldest Jewish groups in the world. And she may not agree with me, but I'm pretty clear. She was sent as a spy. What had happened is, about 6,000 years ago, the Jews decided that they were going to reintroduce the Merkaba to their community, because they hadn't used it for about 60,000 years. And the males were the ones that did it, all the men in this tribe. And they created this Merkaba field, but they didn't really know how to do it very well because it had been so long. And they created a situation very similar to the Philadelphia experiment, if you know about that. They lost control of it. A lot of them died. A lot of them were... It was pretty horrible. And when they got out of that, the survivors of all of this came back and said, wow, we just really don't know what we're doing. They were the first ones to ever write about the Merkaba on Earth. So the women got together, and they decided that what it was is that they were emotionally not prepared. Exactly what I was talking about before. You can't have all this trauma in you and do these kind of interdimensional stuff. It just stops you. And so, and it wasn't just the trauma. I mean, they hadn't experienced fourth dimension in a very long time either. So they had to, what the women decided to do was to create a system to heal the mental, emotional, and physical bodies. And even they realized it didn't have to be perfect. It just had to be good. It just couldn't be too far out of balance in any one of them, or you can't. I mean, if you're just a totally broken up body and you're in a bed and tubes and you're unconscious, I mean, you got a body, but it doesn't do you much good. And so emotionally, there's a lot of people that are like that. You can't see it, but they're just like that. They're on tubes in a hospital and they can barely keep it together. And so they made a system to heal, to bring the mental, emotional, and physical body together, and also to prepare them for interdimensional experience. Because it's really unique. It's different than this. Every different dimension is completely and totally and absolutely and 1,000,000% different than the last one. And it takes a while. Every time you enter into one, you're a baby. And you have to figure everything out all over again. And so they set up this school, and it's been called the School of Images, only Claudette calls it the Blue School, because she has slightly changed this school in her understanding. And she is the only Jew ever allowed, a person who is not a Jew, ever allowed into the school. She's not Jewish, she's Polish, and she's doesn't have that lineage in her. But the leader of this, Colette, she was 96 when she died about 10 years ago or so, and somebody passed a photograph of her, and she stopped and said, "That person, you can let her in. She can do this." Well, that person actually is changing the whole course of this right now. And so when she came to me, the school sent her here to learn the Merkaba, because they had, after 6,000 years, the female side was intact. They had that school perfectly intact. But the male side of the Merkaba, they had just completely lost it. They didn't have it. And so she was to come there, learn the Merkaba, and go back and tell them how to do it. And but I took one look at her, I fell in love with her, and brought her home, and she's been with me ever since. And I still love her. And she still has a one-way ticket back. And so what she changed it in that is that in all these 6,000 years, it was always a one-to-one person, the person doing the work and one person, and they had to work on one-to-one. And Claudette said, "Well, I think we can do this in groups." And they said, "No, it's not possible." She says, "Well, I'm going to do it." And so she went out all over in Argentina and Japan and Germany and places around the world, and started doing this, and found a way that she could take large groups. They can't get too large, but they can be this big, no problem. And she can completely track with that many people and move with their emotional bodies and their physical bodies and whatever their problems are. And after about 5, 6, 7 years, the rest of the school was watching this, and then they started doing it too, because they saw that it was working. And then when she went into Russia, she learned a great deal more about how to work with large groups of people. But I'll just tell you a few things about the school, and it took me forever, because when I was watching what she was doing, it seems like magic. It just seems like, how could you make these kind of changes so simply, in such an easy way? It just, things that like a normal therapist, I mean, she is a psychologist, she has a degree and everything, but she's never used it, she's only used this. But in normal therapy, it takes forever to work this stuff out, usually. And she can move through years and years of what would be therapy in just days, and the person is totally balanced. But it begins with a completely different view of the reality. Right now, we think that all the stars and planets are real, exactly like I was saying before, and all of that other stuff. But they didn't 6,000 years ago. They never considered any of this stuff actual or tangible, that is real. It goes beyond them. And their way of perceiving it is that anything you are perceiving, no matter how that image is coming to you, is of equal value. So if you're looking at reality, it's no different than a dream, or no different than what happens if you take a psychedelic and you go into other images moving in that way, or if you get a bump in the head and you go unconscious and you have images coming through that way. However the images are coming to you, they're of all the same value, and they all have meaning just as important as this world does. And also another thing that is hard for us to understand is that positive and negative images have the same value. So if you're looking at an image of someone killing somebody and you're looking at a mother holding a baby, one isn't better than the other. They're the same value. This goes beyond everything we understand at this point, but that's how they saw it at those times. And that includes, I just realized here, even if you go into other dimensions and everything else and you see all this other stuff, there's no difference. It's just an image. And they have two different kinds of images. One of them we understand. That's called guided imagery, where you would take somebody along, say you tell them to close your eyes, you're walking along a beach, you see the waves, see white clouds, and you're telling them what to see. And you're guiding them along. They say there are places for that kind of work, but it's basically at the bottom. It's almost useless. Because you have to get the imagery coming from within the person out, not what you're putting in. And it has to be their own imagery. And the other one is called translation imagery. And it is a school that is divided into, I think it's 6 parts. There's a school of numbers, school of form, which is basically sacred geometry, the school of colors, the school of images, the school of reversing. I guess there's 5 schools. And and then there's schools within the schools. So within the school of images, here's the reality, we call it reality, that's one school. And then there's a school of dreams, and there's all these other places that are in there. And they teach you how to remember every single thing that happens all night long. Every word you said, everything that happened to you for the entire night. And you can't imagine that you can do that, but you can, because I was watching. She used to have individual students, and they would fax in their night before dreams, and here you're getting these every word. It goes on and on and on, and it's just amazing. And you can remember everything. I really don't know how she teaches you to do that, but they do. And I remember when Colette was still alive, and that was she was the last living member of this tribe, the last one. And she was holding on to that knowledge. So it came down to one person, just like the Hopi prophecy and everything. It would come down to one person. She was literally the last one knowing this. And she gave it to 12 people around the world. My wife was one of them. And I tried to study with my wife. I wanted to understand what she was doing because I could see the power in what she was doing, but I couldn't. It just didn't make any kind of sense. I'm logical, and this is not logical. And so I tried to get it from her, and I tried, and I walked away, and I go, I'm never going to get it from her. And she's not interested in telling me either, She's, and so I went to her teacher, Catherine Schoenberg, and I went out there, and I studied with her for a little bit. And basically she said, you can't talk about this. You can only experience it. Talking doesn't do anything. And so I pushed her, and she says, well, it's kind of like if you think of the emotional body as something, the way she was saying is you kind of play tennis with it. You put an image in, and the emotional body will respond with another image. And then when you do, once you see that image, then a communication begins back and forth with images on a very deep level with the person. And when you get back to the source of the problem, you can completely change it. And from their point of view, you can heal any disease in the world either instantaneously or at any time, in any time frame you wish. They actually go before the thing happened. For example, I was over here at another conference center in Sedona many years ago, and we had a break in the middle of this, and my wife we were teaching together at that time. And everybody's drinking coffee and eating cookies and things and talking, and this one lady came up who was blind. She couldn't see. And she'd been blind for about 15 years, but she was about 30 years old. And so we were talking to her, and in the course of it, I don't know why I said it, I just said, I says, how did you get blind? What happened? And she made a joke out of it. She said some joke, and it included her father. And Claudette just looked at me and just and took her over in the corner. And she started doing imagery with her. And she was there for about 15 minutes. And I was talking to someone else, but I was kind of watching what was going on there. And then all of a sudden, this girl just screams. And she goes, oh my God. And she goes up, and everybody turns around. She goes, I can see, I can see. And as it turned out, she ended up with 2015. She could see a fly on a tree. It was like perfect. There was nothing ever wrong with her eyes. She shut them off because something her dad did to her a long time ago, and she just didn't want to see anymore. And Claudette picked that up instantly, went back to the time when that happened, kept using the images, going back further and further until she got to where it was. And then what they do is they go 5 minutes before it happened, and they take that image, they change the image that your spirit is accepting as reality, and they throw it away and they replace it with another one. And that is a more healthy one. And then they bring it forward in time and into the future from the time that they're doing that until it's at least first 3 months and then 6 months and I think 9 months or something. Into the future, they can see it still holding and then let go. And then what happens, that person goes up to the present time and it's gone. And they no longer have that problem anymore. It just doesn't exist. In fact, when I was there, I couldn't figure it out from Claudette's teacher either, Catherine Shainberg. So I went to Israel, and I went to Jerusalem, and I went to this lady's house, Colette, which they say, Colette is a very famous person in Israel. She was. She was given the highest award possible. She was given an award. The award was the most beloved of Israel in the last 500 years. And she was a Moroccan Jew, and she just sat in her house and never left her house. She hadn't left her house in 40 years. And people, just a steady stream of people would come to her house to get 5 minutes with her. Because in 5 minutes she could heal anything they had. And so they would wait 4 or 5 years to get that 5 minutes with her and come in there. But I wanted to see her, and somebody just figured it out and just brought me to her house and sat me down next to her. And I don't know how I got in there, but I did. And she just looked at me and kept going. And as I was watching, there was about 15 or 20 medical doctors there. And they were all taking notes. Because she had a way of, she was teaching them how to use this for healing physically. And they were getting patterns from her in all these different ways and things. But I just sat there and I for 2 or 3 hours, while she was doing that. I was just being polite. I couldn't interrupt. And then finally, at one point, she just, out of the blue, she just turns to me. She goes, "What do you want?" I go, "Well, I have a question." And she goes, "What is it?" And I says, "Well, it's about reversing." And I thought she was going to kill me. She goes, "How did you know about that?" And she was just like, I thought she was really going to get out of her chair and come after me. And I says, "Well, what is that?" And I said, I tried to protect myself, and I go, "Well, Catherine Shainberg," and I started naming the lineage down, And she goes, "Oh, okay." She says, "Okay, you came through." And then she realized that I was coming through the channels and not through some other way, because I think she would have picked me up and thrown me on the street otherwise. She was a feisty little lady, even in her 90s. And so she says, and then I saw it in her face. She went, "Oh," like that, right, while she was talking to me. And she turns to the group, and she goes, "Oh, because that's a secret part of the school, and nobody knew about it." And they're all going, "What's reversing?" and so she was, "Oh." And so she had to explain it to them. And she gave this example. She says, "Well, you guys know certain such." Yeah. And he was 27 or 28 years old. And they said, "Yeah, we know him." He says, "Well, he didn't used to have a right arm." And they went, "What?" Because none of them knew that. His right arm was taken off in an automobile accident. and when he first came to me. And so after we taught him to the certain level where you're at now, we then brought him into the school of reversing, and we went backwards in time to the place when the automobile accident went in front of that, and then changed the image, and then brought it forward in time. And then what happened is his arm grew all the way back. It took about a year, but everything grew back perfectly normal. And she had it all documented with videos and everything. And so these medical doctors were, let me see this stuff. I got to see this. Is this really real? Let me see it. They were all excited. And then she turns back to me and says, okay, you. What do you want to know about reversing? And I was in the middle of something that I didn't want to get involved in. But I was involved in it. I had no choice. And it was on a global level where I had learned certain things that probably nobody on earth knows hardly. And I was trying to deal with these things. And I discovered that I had been in two of them at that time, two of these global events that were... it's hard to explain this. It's like the first one was I was in Switzerland giving a class there, and I was driving through, and then I drove through Austria over to Germany. And when I got into Germany, it was 3 days before the Kosovo War began. And the angels came in and said, well, there's going to be a war started here in 3 days. And it's going to... but it isn't just an ordinary war. It is a war that is designed to bring the Arab world into jihad. And so that's what the whole purpose of that was. And it was in conjunction with Saddam and what's his name, Milanovic or something? Milosevic. The two of them, a lot of the world doesn't know it, but they were best friends. They were really, really good friends. In fact, the entire underground military system that was in Iraq was built by Milanovic. How do you say it? How do you say it? Milosevic? Milosevic. He built that for Saddam. And they had planned together, according to the angels, to create, that's why they were pushing the women and the children and killing the men, because they were trying to get NATO to attack, and they wanted... And then in the reverse, they were hoping that the Arab world would just go full tilt and call for jihad. And so they wanted us to do something, and they said, well, what am I supposed to do? And they says, well, you're about to go into Germany with a group of, and as it turned out, it was exactly 100 people. And he says, that's not an ordinary workshop. Those people had planned this from a long time ago. And their purpose is to stop what is about to happen. And they continued through the dream world to show me all these different things that was going on within these people. And then when I got there, I told them, I just laid it on. I just told them the truth. I said, you're not here for what you think you're coming here for. And they all says, yeah, we know. I said, what do you know? And he says, well, we know. Well, the Kosovo War started the very day we started the workshop. And they knew. They said, and they knew that this was, that this war was designed and aimed at Third World War. And one of them stood up and said, we started the Second World War, but we're here to stop the Third World War. And they did. They went into a meditation. And they all understood once I had given them the parameters of how to do it, they all went in and they went deep into that level. They it was pretty amazing. This huge sphere of light appeared over the top of them and stayed there for the whole time. I wanted to have a photograph it because it seems like you just photographed that. It was just sitting here. And they were gone for about 2 hours. Not moving a muscle, and then simultaneously, all together, all 100 of them opened their eyes within 1 second. They went like that. All of them said, and they all looked at each other and went, we did it. And they knew it, and it changed the course of history. And this happened, and then it happened to me when I was in Russia in 1999. that's when, the day that I got there, Chechnya attacked, and they blew up this huge building in Moscow. I remember about 300 people were killed. And the angels came in immediately, and they told me it was Chechnya right at that point. And they said, that's what's going on. And it's Saddam again, who was friends with that country and the one next door. And during that workshop, I was the king of that country next door, whatever it was, invited me to his palace. And when he's sitting there, he shows me a picture of him and Saddam with their arms around each other. And I already knew that what was going on in that level. And they said, that's again what they were trying to do. They were trying to get Russia to come in and attack that country, hoping it's this little hopeless Arab country the rest of them would do jihad. But this was really interesting. During the break in all of this, the angels had me call in Russians to do this meditation. 300 people showed up, and so they were all in this huge auditorium, and I started talking to them, telling them what we were there for and what they're doing, and they seemed to know also, not like the Germans did, but they had we understand, and they said, and one of them says, we want to discuss this first. And I says, okay. Well, as it was, about a third of them were Jewish, about a third of them were Christian, and about a third of them were Muslim. And what a discussion. I mean, they were screaming at each other. You Jews and you Muslims. You know, and the Christians, they were saying, were all involved in pornography, and you were doing this. And they were going on and on and on. They were screaming. And I mean, I just sat down and watched this. And it went on for long time, I really don't know, over an hour. And basically the guy who was helping me, Tom de Winter, who's from Holland, but he works with the Russians, he says, I think you've lost the group. And I says, no, just wait and see what happens. And then finally they got done. There's a little bit of quietness, and somebody stands up and says, okay, let's do this. And they all hold hands. I go, wow. And they close their eyes and they're gone, just like the Germans for an hour longer. It was an hour and a half at least. Again, this big white sphere of light formed. Took longer, took about a half an hour, but it formed above them. They went in total unity. And I don't know what was going on in their minds, or in their hearts, but whatever it was when they're done, the same thing happened. They all just opened their eyes all at once, and they felt absolutely that what they had done was going to, that we would not go into a third world war, and it never developed into one. And we're going to go through 19 of these. There's 19 places in the Torah, 19 secret places where it describes this, and that we're going to go through these places, and if any one of them were to break down, it would be the end of life on earth. And I don't know where we're now. We're probably at number 15 or something like that. There's been a lot of things secretly going on that we don't know about. And eventually we'll come to number 19, and at which point we transcend. And so this way of being, this way of what they call reversing in the Hebrew world it's real. It's very real. Yes.
Stand up.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because Nassim Haramein is doing a teaching about reversing.
Yeah.
Explaining, in terms of geometry and space-time coordinates.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you change the geometry, when you go backwards and to the point you had a problem, you changed the information there. And the old geometry backwards changes, forward changes up to the present.
Thinking of it in terms of geometry, what happens is there are only certain places where you can make those changes, certain very precise times.
Exactly.
And geological locations on the earth simultaneously. And then you can, at that moment, you can do something. Any other time, you can't do anything. Yeah, I really like what he's doing. I was just on a BBS television, or radio, I guess it was, with him recently, and I like his work. I like what he's doing, and I like where he's going, and it's very good. It's very good work he's doing. Reversing is something I also like you to do tonight. When you go home, you have homework. And that is to write the word reversing and put it on your table by your bed so that you'll remember when you wake up in the morning. And when you go in, take this day, but this day may not be the best one, but it's the only one we've got right now. And take this day, and after you've brushed your teeth and you're in bed and you're ready to go to sleep, then take the day and go backwards. I don't mean walking backwards. You go in and you scan through the day to find something that didn't feel good. Something that somebody said to you or something, or who knows what. If you don't have anything, you don't have anything. You just scan through until you find something. If you don't find anything, then it's okay. But this shouldn't take more than a minute. You just scan the entire day, but going backwards. You can't, it does not work going forwards. You have to be in reverse. And then when you get to someplace, let's just use an example, you get somewhere and somebody said something dumb to you and you may hurt your feelings or something like that. Or maybe worse, who knows. You come to that and you do exactly what I say, then go 5 minutes before it happened and in your own mind change it to a way that you would have liked to seen it happen. And then once you see that image of how you would like to see it happen, then look 30 days into the future and feel that it is still holding, that the image still works there, and then go another time. They have different feelings about how intense something is. Sometimes you have to go further. But usually at least 2 months or 3 months into the future that you can see that it's still there. And then once you have done that, then stop and keep going back, reversing, until you either find another one or you get back to when you woke up. According to this way of understanding, you not only change yourself, but you change the image with the person. They won't even remember if you really do it. You literally are changing reality. And so just try it. And if it's a very valuable tool, and you can use it as much as you want. Once you understand it, you can apply it to what happened a month ago or 10 years ago or when you were born. Or even back into other past lives if you want to. You can alter anything, because from their way of seeing there is no linear time, there just is images. And you change the images and you change everything. We have a very specific understanding, and we think that what our way of perceiving today is what everybody used to think of, but it isn't true. We have changed many times over the past. So often we go into archaeology and you go into these ancient temples and things, and people look at it and they apply their modern day thinking to try to interpret what that is, and it doesn't work, because the people who did that were in another world, have a totally different belief pattern and everything and understanding, and you can't do that. And and then a lot of times they fake it. I was in Peru once at Machu Picchu, and I remember there's a big stone there, and I was all done doing what I was doing. I was just looking at the thing. I was, what is that? I was trying to understand it. It didn't make any sense. And this archaeologist came with a group, and he stopped. He was speaking English, and he gave them this explanation of what it was. And I went, wow, that makes so much sense. Now I understand, And so they left, and I was thinking, God, that's really fantastic. They did this and that, and that's what happened. And then another one came along, and I thought he was going to tell them the same thing, and he told them a totally different thing. It wasn't even completely different, but it was really good. I said, okay, one of these is true, but maybe. or maybe neither one of them are true, but definitely one of them is wrong, you know. And but that was just when I was sort of beginning. But later I realized this as I got into more and more ancient ruins that we've changed over and over and over, and we're about to change again. You know, where if we looked at humanity just 2, 3, 4 years from now, our belief patterns are going to be so different that anything that we did now, if you looked at it, wouldn't make any sense with who we will be in the future. And so if we came back, if somebody else came back in later with the kind of thinking that we had in the future and try to apply that to who we are now, it won't work. We're doing things deeply from polarity thinking. Everything we judge everything that takes place, and we do it all from that.